Hello and welcome back to the Sweat Capital podcast. Today we are very privileged to be having Grant Wechsel and Darren Lockyer returning on the show. Actually, we've sharpened up a bit since the last time we had you both on. But thanks for putting yourselves through this again, guys.
Thanks, mate. Glad to be back.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so obviously we're here at Cherry Red Record Stadium. Round one's upon us for London Broncos. Just for some context, I'm going to take us back to the investment time when you made the investment for London Broncos. What was like the one thing that got you over the line where you thought, yeah, this is what we want to do?
Well, it probably started mid last year. Ironically, I was at a British Lions match in Brisbane, and someone said to me, "Oh, you should buy the London Broncos." And we'd had a few wines, and then I called Darren afterwards. I said, "Oh, we should actually have a look at it." And I don't think there was any one thing. I think obviously, you can talk more from a rugby league point of view, but I'm a passionate rugby league person, always have been since I was a kid. And I think the chance to bring business together with sport, for me, it was just super exciting and interesting. And the more we looked into it, the more it was clear that there was an opportunity, big turnaround to do, but clear there was an opportunity. So for me, if I had to answer my one thing, it was probably that challenge of can I do in sport what we've done in other businesses and have a crack and make it work.
I love it.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I think the Broncos name was a part of it. Given that the London Broncos had been around for a while, Barry Marina was the guy that actually created the London Broncos. They were known as Fulham before that, and the Crusaders and the Harlequins at some point. So they've had a few changes around their name, but the Broncos, it was an opportunity to keep that alive here in London. I think if you talk about the investment perspective and the opportunity, there is a huge opportunity. It comes with risk. But the other thing for me was if our investment turns out to be successful, then I think it's a good outcome for the game. A strong London team in rugby league can only be good for rugby league.
Yeah. Obviously Valandis is looking around, the NRL might invest 33% or something in the Super League itself. So obviously there's a lot of Australian interest in the English Rugby League over here. Do you want to speak to that and how you're sort of capitalising on that as well?
Yeah, look, I think Peter's he wants rugby league to be the biggest and best it can be, and obviously it's very strong in Australia, but he's got interest in making the game better, across wherever it's played. So I think he's watching, and I think he wants to give the Northern Hemisphere, his guidance and his recommendations about how to take the game forward. In terms of investment, look, maybe down the track, but I don't think it's on the table right at this minute.
Yeah, cool. And in terms of like the story behind, the club, you sort of touched on it, Darren, and I think in a lot of sporting contexts, you very much are either as a fan or be it an investor, coach, player, you're buying into the story and the journey. What is the story of the London Broncos? Can you give our Aussie listeners who are probably fast asleep at the moment or at the pub, bit of context to the London Broncos? And
well, from what I don't know every detail, but 1980 the club was formed and they were known as Fulham.
Yeah, they started at Craven Cottage, so it's a side project. But one of our things we want to do is take a big game back to Craven Cottage.
That's a big stadium, 30,000 capacity, isn't it?
Yeah. But they started there, and then it was the 90s when the Brisbane Broncos got involved, and you touched on that before with Barry Marina, and then famously Richard Branson then owned them for a brief period of time and had Virgin, across the front of the jersey. So it's actually quite a storied club in that regard. There's been a lot of change. They've played a lot of different places. If you talk about their kind of glory days, they made a Challenge Cup final in 1999 at Wembley. There's a whole history there to build on. But the story really at the moment is that the club was almost finished. David Hughes, who carried the club for 30 years after Richard Branson as the owner and funded it, was ready to walk away. And then that's when Gary Hetherington got involved. And, at one point fans were paying donations to keep the club alive. So it's a real turnaround story, 4 months of which we've now done. And a huge change has happened in that period of time. So we've got a lot of people poking fun at it being the Wrexham of rugby league or things like that. And Darren and I comment that we're not quite as famous or attractive as Hollywood stars, but it is that much of a turnaround story. Like it wasn't beyond to say that the club would shut down, and now we've got a whole new team. We've got Jason Demetrio as coach, and we're here for our first game as owners today, 4 months later.
Yeah, awesome. And in terms of talking through the turnaround plan and the vision, like I think one of the things I find really interesting about sport is when you do get that off field right, it tends to, mirror on the field, as you guys were saying, and you can't really get the sustained on-field performance without getting your ducks in a row. Darren, you've obviously spent a fair bit of time involved in sporting orgs. When you came here, sort of what were those key priorities initially that you saw in terms of decisions and people you wanted to bring in?
Well, I think the first part is you need to be winning on the field. So when we reached out to Jason Demetrio, the coach, he's got a lot of experience, and I rate him as a person and as someone who knows what he's doing as a coach. So when we agreed that JD was our man, and he said, "Yep, I'm in," then he built out the roster with a few other people. But I think that was the first part, and then we started to focus on the off-field component. And look, I think what we've been saying is that watching the game is one thing, but we need to bring an experience to the game day, so that we're not just playing footy. We need to be thinking about what else can we do that entertains the people coming here. And so we've got the DJ today,
DJ Hask.
DJ Hask.
too.
Bit of rugby union crossover there, but you see on his video, he said he got to choose union or league, and he chose league. I think he was just looking for a bit of...
That's always good. You got him endorsed in the league. Yeah.
Controversy, yeah. So he's on the decks today, and then we've got Big John, Bosch man, the ground. But all of that is designed to get new people to the game, right? So if we rely on just getting rugby league fans in London to the game only, then we're not bringing new people to the game, and all of that match day experience stuff we talked about isn't needed. Like in the North, if you've got 15,000 fans already and you've got 15,000 seats, they don't have entertainment. You just turn up and watch your team. Similar to the football here in London, you go to an Arsenal game here and there's no entertainment.
Yeah.
Because you've already got
that rusted on.
Yeah, exactly right. So we need to create that. So not only entertainment, food, beverage, we've gone out to local community stuff here. We've got NHS workers coming, which is basically like state medical staff and hospital workers and things back home who are local to the hospital. We've got the local council engaged, and we've got even AFC Wimbledon, whose stadium this is, have promoted it to their fans to try and get the locals here. But we've also really engaged the expat community, particularly the Aussies, because we said we would. We got a big section from the Aussies in London. Here today, we've got the Australian British Chamber of Commerce here. We've got a whole heap of Australian companies in hospitality. So that's been a good thing for us to do too.
I think the other part too is the branding. So we've got obviously new logo, new colours,
new kit.
Reebok have come on board. They believe in us, and I think that's been a lot of people have commented about the merch, and I think that's important as well, the branding.
Yeah,
we'll be buying some merch today, I think.
And I saw I've been keeping an eye on both of you two. Very active on the socials now, Darren. I think it's been a long time coming for
revelation. A few of us we spoke to.
A few of us diehard Broncos fans to finally see you on Instagram. That's a win.
What a coincidence!
Is that
it's nothing to do with the club starting?
Is that all managed by you personally, Darren, or do you got someone helping you out doing it?
It's a bit of both.
Is it? Yeah.
I think when it first started, it was handled by a third party, but there was a lot of people telling me, "Is that really you?" And I said, "Well, it's not, but I'm learning, and it'll eventually evolve into me."
The selfie with Wally, the selfie with Wally, that broke the internet.
No, I think my family, my kids, my teenage kids, and with my wife, she's very social. They're starting to educate me. So, but again, that's how we bring eyeballs to the club. We've got to think of different ways, and obviously, Instagram, TikTok, all of those platforms, we've got to be active there.
Well, and part of that with your account too is attracting Australian fans. We've had a heap of interest in Australia, and I can tell you guys, I don't think we've announced to anyone, but we're starting an Aussie membership. So it's basically become a supporter of the club. You get the famous hat. The hat's in high demand with the red B. We wanted to make that hat. The idea of it came from like the Boston hat, right? Everyone just you see the red B and you know it's Boston. We've got the swords, but we wanted it to be something that people can wear whether they're in Australia or the UK or anywhere. So we got that launching after this game. There'll be an Aussie membership that you can purchase, and it includes the hat.
Oh, sign us up. That's my girlfriend will be pleased that it's a hat as well, because she's always giving me stick about my haircut. So that'll be fantastic. And in terms of like Aussie membership and engagement, UK and Australia ties have for long been a thing in terms of like members is one piece, but also for talent, like some of the players and that sort of thing. How are you seeing, that relationship? Is that at all a focus for maybe some of the guys that are close to the NRL or on the back end of their careers? Or
yeah, well, we've had obviously Regan Campbell-Gillard coming over, and he's now our captain. Darren and I met him personally early on about him coming across before we'd finalised everything, actually, and before we'd bid for the Super League. And I think we call him Reg. The thing that we really appreciate that he's done is he was willing to come across regardless of whether we were playing Super League or Championship this year. So that really put a bit of a marker in the ground. And then Saliva Havili from South Sydney did the same. He came regardless. So those two guys have achieved a lot in the game, and for them to come and back us and what we're doing now, I think set the tone. And then we've got Dean Hawkins came across from Parramatta,
and he's still pretty young too. He's 26 something, isn't he? Yeah.
And he's the same. He's excited, and they're really the focus there is about them obviously winning the championship this year, but really starting to prepare to be a Super League club. And I think obviously if we are in the Super League in 2027, then we'll no doubt attract more Aussie players to come across as well. I know you hear from plenty. The interest is high.
Look, I think moving forward, and as we evolve, Mike Eccles is the director of rugby here. He's obviously knows the London Broncos DNA, but with Jason and himself, we're confident that they can keep evolving the roster. I mean, the other talking point here is the PNG lads. We've got half a dozen of them, and today for me, that's probably the most exciting part is watching those guys who have taken a leap of faith to leave their homeland to come here. For a new challenge and a new experience. Some, probably struggle with it, but today's a big day for them that's what I'm looking forward to the most is watching those guys play today.
Well, there's a lot of excitement back in PNG too. We're streaming the game free, so we expect to get big interest back there. I know the PNG Hunters, a shout out to them. They've shared that as well with all the fans back there to get some eyeballs, because effectively a lot of those lads all came from there, and they're very proud of them coming to play for London. The boys actually went and met the PNG High Commissioner at Ocean. She's coming today to support them. So there's a real good story around that.
And
sure.
Fantastic. And Darren, you touched on there, young men getting up and leaving sort of their homeland to come have a crack. To what extent are sort of, the senior figures within the club getting involved in trying to, help build an enduring culture around those players that do make that leap?
Well, I think welfare is a big part of any organisation, but, given this club, when we first came here, only had a few full-time staff, but there were some people here that were, really good in the welfare space, and so we've got that at the moment. That's really important to us, is making sure that everyone comes over, including their families, feel welcome, feel safe, feel comfortable, because if everyone's happy off the field and their families are enjoying the experience, they're all going to play well on the field.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you guys mentioned the failed Super League bid just briefly before. I think Charlie and I were speaking on the way here. It was almost good that you perhaps didn't get straight into the Super League, because you sort of got to build your way up to it. It's a bit more of a story. You don't have as many of the good players that come over straight away. Do you want to give our audience some background on that bid and sort of the way it sort of works? If you guys are successful this year, what it looks like next year?
Yeah, well, the stock standard answer of the club, of course, is that it gives us a year in the championship to build. And a lot of people have said that, and Darren included, I think, in terms of, a silver lining for us. I personally think we've had to do so much work in 4 months that we would have been ready to be competitive. And the squad that JD has assembled in such a short time, in my opinion, is incredible. But our chance this year to probably show that is the Challenge Cup. So the Challenge Cup, for people who don't know, in Australia is like the FA Cup in football. You get it for no matter what league you're in. We're playing the West Warriors, which is an amateur team, next week. And then, assuming we get by them, we then play the Bradford Bulls, who are in the Super League. So, that's our chance to play a Super League club and prove our worth this year. But in terms of getting in next year, the RFL have been clear now it is going to still be on grading points. So the grading points are basically done from on-field performance and a variety of off-field things around financials, fandom, which includes social media and engagement, and stadium and fans in the seats, obviously, as well. So we think we're pretty well placed in that regard. So we're going to do our best to win the championship and get those grading points and try and be in there in 2027.
I think we put a lot of time and effort in a short space of time to try and get into the Super League. So when we missed out, I think it was disappointing because of the effort. But it's done now, and we just move forward, and we just keep putting our best foot forward this year.
No, fantastic. And just rounding out that point around, the off field and the business. We know, I think Paul White you've sort of brought him along on the journey. Can you speak to those decisions and what you think success will look like from a commercial perspective over the next 12, 24 months?
Yeah, so some of the guys that came in early to help us, like Paul and Johnny Stewart. Yeah, look, I worked under Paul as a player at the Brisbane Broncos, and then I worked on the board with him when he was the CEO. And I always said he was the guy that really turned the Broncos from a football club into a fully a big business. Yeah, and I think that's what we're trying to do here. Okay, yes, the footy component. We're a football club, but at the same time, we need to create a business.
Yeah, and Paul's actually got the mining connection too with us. So I've known Paul a long time as well. So the combination of what he did at the Broncos and he, when Darren asked him to be involved, he was hesitant to get back into rugby league, I always say, but obviously keen to do it with Darren and did know me. And I think he gave us a lot of momentum when we brought him over at the start and people realised how seriously we're taking it. So we were just talking to him this morning, actually, just on message ahead of the game and thanking him for what he did in a short period of time. So we hope to have him involved in the club going forward as well.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and you guys spoke about the whole comparison to Wrexham before as well. What something they did was like that big documentary series as well, and you obviously see in sport these days, the F1 did a series, the NFL and NBA both did these big series to sort of drive the story behind the team. Is there any interest from you guys in terms of documenting that in some sort of series or something? Because I feel like there'd be a fair audience for that. Yeah.
Yeah, look, we have said publicly that we're doing that. So we've been shooting on the previous trips and we will be on this trip as well. I think Building the Broncos is a working title at the moment, but because it is a story of turning around a club from almost being on the brink of not existing to what we're doing, and obviously Darren's profile in the game, we do think there'll be a lot of interest in both the northern and southern hemispheres, and hopefully we get something finalised with that shortly and can announce it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and I think the missing out on Super League, I think, helped that narrative because it's a setback, but we're willing to sort of dust ourselves and get back at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing like an underdog story for a couple of Queenslanders to get behind as well, Darren. No, fantastic. I guess thank you so much for today, guys. Like, it's been fantastic having you both on the show. Conscious you've probably got to dart off to some pre-game things, but just in rounding out sort of the discussion, if you sort of had to paint a picture of what success looks like this year and then success in the long term, so 2 questions for you. Can you each give us a bit of a view on that?
Look, I think given the squad that we've I don't want to put too much pressure on JD and the team, but given the squad that we've assembled, we need to be, going deep into. We need to be winning the championship. That's probably where we think. But with that, we don't want to go down there and tell the players that they need to win it. I think that's in our view. That's we've got a squad there that can do that. And I think the other vision for me is that, when we get in the Super League, we're selling this place out.
Yep.
Yeah. Look, on the first one, agree again. When it's not our place to, get the team ready. JD, we fully trust him in doing that, but winning the championship and for me going as deep as we can in the Challenge Cup this year, because that's the chance to kind of stick it to the north a bit and somewhat the decision not to be promoted to the Super League. And while they've explained that decision and we 100% have taken that on board, the other 2 teams were far above London in terms of their existing grade points. We talked about a lot of new stuff, and I think there was an element of not just from the panel there, but the game in general and the other clubs of, are these guys actually going to do what they're saying they're going to do? So for me, it's let's do what we say we're going to do, and if that results in winning the championship and going deep in the Challenge Cup, I'll be happy with 2026.
Oh, fantastic.
And hopefully in a few years' time as a Brisbane Broncos versus London Broncos World Club Challenge match over here somewhere. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
That'd be a nice moment. Yeah. Obviously we've got a fair way to go here, but it's about building slowly, but we're
would you wear it like one of those 2 sides? Yeah. Because I wouldn't. I'll be in the blue.
Yeah, I'm not sure what would happen there.
It'd be great. I mean, look, they've been super supportive so far. We had Michael Maguire come and visit the club earlier in the year too when he was over here. So whatever we can learn from such a successful club, and bring in here would be great. And if we get to play him one day, it'd be even better.
No, thank you, Grant. Thank you, Darren. We're truly privileged to have you both on to share the story of the London Broncos to date and paint a picture for our audience around how they can get involved and get behind the story. We think we've got a fair few young, and even older Australians who'll be keen to get behind and get their cap and get their Aussie membership. So thanks very much for coming on, guys.
Thanks,
Sally. Thanks,
Thank
Phil.
you. Cheers.